Marley was dead, to begin with. There is no doubt whatsoever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was considered good for any piece of business he chose to put his hand to. Marley was as dead as a door-nail. Now, I don't know what there is particularly dead about a door-nail. I would think a coffin-nail would be a deader piece of iron, but far be it from me to change the expression, or the country's done for. So permit me to repeat, once again, emphatically, that Marley was dead as a door-nail. Scrooge knew Marley was dead? Of course he did. How could it be otherwise? Scrooge and he had been partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole friend, and the only man who mourned him, if Scrooge can be said to have mourned at all. And the mention of Marley's funeral brings me back to the point I started from. There is no doubt that Marley was dead. This must be distinctly understood, or nothing wonderful can come of the story I am going to relate. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood, years afterward, above the warehouse door. Scrooge and Marley. The firm was known as Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge, and sometimes Marley. But he answered to both names. It was all the same to him.
And the fog was as thick as pea soup on that Christmas Eve of 1843. When Scrooge sat busy in his counting house, with his clerk nearby trying to warm himself at a candle, but since he didn't have much of an imagination, he failed.
A Merry Christmas, Uncle.
What?
I said a Merry Christmas. God save you.
Bah, humbug.
Christmas? A humbug? Surely you don't mean that, Uncle.
Of course I mean it. What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough.
Come, Uncle, what reason have you to be dismal? You're rich enough.
Ah, away with Christmas. What is Christmas but a time for paying bills with money you don't have? A time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. If I could work my will, every idiot that goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart, he should.
Uncle!
Nephew! Keep Christmas in your way and let me keep it in mine.
Keep it, but you don't keep it.
Let me leave it alone then. A lot of good has it done you.
Well, there are many things from which I have benefited, even if they didn't show a profit. I dare say Christmas among the rest. But if anything belonging to Christmas could be considered apart from the sacred source of its name and origin, I'm sure I've always thought of Christmas as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, the only time of year I know when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely and think of others, so that they're really fellow passengers to the grave. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of silver or gold in my pocket, I believe it has done me good, and it will do me good, and I say God bless it.
Now that sound out of you, Cratchit, and you'll keep your Christmas by losing your position.
Don't be angry, Uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow.
Let me ask you a question. Why did you get married recently?
Because I fell in love, of course.
Ha! You fell in love. Good afternoon, nephew.
Never came to see me before I married. Why could that's a reason for not visiting me now?
Good afternoon.
I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why can't we be friends?
Good afternoon.
I am sorry to find you so resolute. We've never had a quarrel, you and I. I've come all this way to give you greetings of the season, and I shall keep my Christmas humor to the last. So a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon.
And a Merry Christmas to you, Bob Cratchit.
Thank you, sir. Merry Christmas to you.
There's another one. My clerk, making 15 shillings a week, with a wife and family, and talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Bedlam.
Scrooge and Marley's, I believe. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Mr. Marley is dead. In fact, he died 7 years ago this very night.
Oh, I'm quite sorry to hear it. But I have no doubt his generosity is well represented by his lying partner.
At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge,
It is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and needy, who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of basic needs. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts, sir.
Are there no prisons?
Oh, no, sir. There are still plenty of prisons.
And the workhouses, they are still in operation then?
They are. Still, I wish I could say they were not.
The treadmill and the poor law, they are in full vigor then?
Yes, very busy, sir.
Ah, I thought by what you said that something had stopped them in their useful course. I'm glad to hear it.
Given that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer to the multitudes, a few of us are trying to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink, and some means of want. We choose this time because it is a time, above all others, when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
Ah, you wish to be anonymous then.
I wish to be left alone. I do not make myself merry at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I'm taxed for the institutions which I mentioned. They cost enough. Those who are badly off must go there.
But many can't go there, and many would rather die.
Well, if they'd rather die, perhaps they should go and do it, and decrease the surplus population. Besides, I wouldn't know about it.
Well, you could know, sir.
It's none of my business. I have enough business of my own that I can't interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly, and I will thank you if you leave me to it. Good afternoon, ladies. You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose?
If it's quite convenient, sir.
It's not convenient, and it's not fair. Why, if I were to stop you half a crown, you'd think yourself abused. Yet you don't think me abused when I pay you a day's wages for no work.
It's only once a year, sir.
A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. Still, I suppose you must have all day. Be here all the earlier the next morning.
Oh, yes, sir, I shall. I certainly shall.
Father!
Hello, my dear son.
Father, I have been waiting for you.
Let's go by Corn Hill and watch the children play. Soon you'll be there too, playing with them.
I feel I am getting stronger every day.
And do you remember what tomorrow is?
Christmas Day!
And I'm to have the whole day off to celebrate with my family.
Hurrah for Christmas!
Oh, Scrooge. He was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, he was. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner to be sure. Secret, self-contained, and solitary as an oyster. He carried his own low temperature with him everywhere he went. He iced his office in the dog days, and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas. Scrooge always took his melancholy dinner in the same old melancholy tavern, and this night was no different. He read all the papers and beguiled the rest of the evening with his banker's book, before he took himself home to bed. He lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms. It was old and dreary, for nobody lived in it but Scrooge, the other rooms being all let out as offices. The fog and frost so hung about the black old gateway of the house that it seemed as if the genius of the weather sat in mournful meditation on the threshold. Scrooge went in, and closed the door with a bang. The sound resounded through the house like thunder. Every room above, and every cask in the wine merchant's cellar below, appeared to have a separate peal of echoes of its own. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. He fastened the door and walked across the hall and up the stairs. Up Scrooge went, not caring a button for it being very dark. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. Quite satisfied, he closed his door and locked himself in. Double locked himself in, which was not his custom. Thus secured against surprise, he put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap, and sat down before a very low fire to take his gruel. As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the room. It was with great astonishment and with a strange dread that as he looked, he saw this bell began to swing.
Scrooge!
Humbug. I won't. How's this? What do you want with me?
Much.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
Who were you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Ha! I don't believe it.
What evidence would you have of my reality beyond that of your senses?
I don't know.
Why do you doubt your senses?
Because a little something affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You might be a bit of undigested beef, a small blot of mustard, perhaps a fragment of underdone potato. Why, there's more of gravy than grave about you, whatever you are. Mercy, dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me?
Man of the worldly mind, do you believe in me or not?
I do, I must. But why have you come to me?
It is required of every man that he should walk abroad among his fellow men and travel far and wide. That spirit does not go forth in life. It is condemned to do so after death, and witness what it cannot share but might have shared, and turn to happiness. Oh, woe is me!
You are fettered. Tell me why.
I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it, link by link, yard by yard, and wore it of my own free will. Is the pattern strange to you? Or would you know the weight and length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was as long and as heavy as this, 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have labored on it since. It is a ponderous chain.
Oh, Jacob, speak words of comfort to me.
I have none to give. I have little time. I cannot rest, cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hole. Oh, not to know that any Christian spirit working kindly in its little sphere would find its mortal life too short for its vast means of usefulness. Not to know that no space of regret can make amends for one life's opportunity misused. Yet such was I. Oh, such was I.
Jacob, you were always a good man of business.
Business! Humankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. Why did I walk through crowds of fellow beings with my eyes turned down, and never raise them to that blessed star which led the wise men to a poor abode so long ago? Were there no poor homes to which its light would have conducted me? Hear me! My time is nearly done.
I will, Jacob, but don't be hard on me.
I am here tonight to warn you that I have a chance that I have procured for you, that you may escape my fate.
You were always a good friend, Jacob. Thank ye.
You will be visited by 3 spirits.
Are they the chance of which you spoke?
They are.
In that case, I think I'd rather not.
Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first when the bell tolls 1.
Can't I take them all at once and just get it over with?
Expect the next one tomorrow night at the same hour. The next, when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate, look to see me no more, and for your own sake, take care that you remember what has passed between us. Oh!
Scrooge tried to say humbug, but stopped at the first syllable. And being from the motion he had undergone, or the fatigues of the day, or his glimpse of the invisible world, or the conversation of the ghosts, or the lateness of the hour, he went straight to bed, without undressing, and fell asleep on the instant. Scrooge awoke. The church clock told a deep, dull, hollow, melancholy one. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn aside by a strange figure.
Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold to me?
I am.
Who and what are you?
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood in the busy thoroughfares of the city. It was made plain enough by the dressing of the shops that here, too, it was Christmas time. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it.
Know it? I apprenticed here.
They went in. At the sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig sitting behind such a high desk that if he had been 2 inches taller he must have knocked his head against the ceiling, Scrooge cried in great excitement.
Why, it's old Fezziwig! Bless his heart! It's Fezziwig, alive again!
Yo-ho there, Ebenezer. Dick?
A living and moving picture of Scrooge's former self, a young man, came briskly in accompanied by his fellow apprentice.
Yo-ho there, my boys. No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick. Christmas, Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up before a man can say Jack Robinson. Clear away, my lads. Let's have lots of room here.
Clear away. There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away or couldn't have cleared away with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. The warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book and went up to the lofty desk and made an orchestra of it and tuned like 50 stomach aches. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In they all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling. In they all came anyhow and everywhere how. Away they all went, 20 couple at once, hands half round and back again the other way, down the middle and up again, round and round. The old top couple always turning up in the wrong place. When the clock struck 11, this ball broke out. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig, shaking hands with every person as he or she went out, wished him or her a Merry Christmas.
Small matter to make these silly folks so full of gratitude. You spent a few pounds of your money, 3 or 4 perhaps. Is that so much that he deserves his praise?
Oh, it isn't that, Spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our work a toil or a pleasure. Say that this power lies in words and looks and things impossible to add and count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it had cost a fortune. Spirit, remove me from this place. Haunt me no longer.
As he struggled with his spirit, he was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness. And further, being in his own bedroom, he had barely time to reel to bed before he had sunk into a heavy sleep.
Scrooge awoke in his bedroom. The walls and ceiling were so hung with living green that it looked a perfect grove. The leaves of holly, mistletoe, and ivy reflected back the light, and such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney. Heaped upon the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys, geese, great joints of meat, pigs, long rigs of sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, red-hot chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples, juicy oranges, luscious pears, great bowls of punch, and immense 12 cakes. Upon this couch there sat a giant, glorious to see, who bore a glowing torch.
Come in, and know me better, man. I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. You've never seen the likes of me before. Touch my robe.
Scrooge did as he was told, and held it fast. The room and its contents all vanished instantly, and they stood in the city streets upon a snowy Christmas morning. Scrooge and the ghost passed on, invisible, straight to Scrooge's clerk's, and on the threshold of the door the spirit smiled, and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with the sprinklings of her torch. Then up rose Mrs. Cratchit.
What has ever got your precious father and your brother Tiny Tim? No, there's Father coming.
The two young Cratchits were everywhere at once. In came Bob, the father, his threadbare clothes darned up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim beside him. Alas for Tiny Tim, he bore a little crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame.
And how did little Tim behave?
As good as gold and better. Somehow he gets so thoughtful sitting by himself so much, and thinks of the strange things you ever heard. He told me coming home that he hoped that the people saw him in church, because he was a cripple, and that it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk in the wonderful city.
The two young Cratchits went to fetch the goose, with which they soon returned in high procession. Mrs. Cratchit made the gravy, ready beforehand in a little saucepan, hissing hot. Martha mashed the potatoes with incredible vigor and sweetened up the applesauce. Bob took Tiny Tim beside him in a tiny corner at the table, and the two young Cratchits set chairs for everybody. At last the dishes were set on and grace was said. It was succeeded by a breathless pause, as Mrs. Cratchit, looking slowly all along the carving knife, prepared to plunge it into the breast. But when she did, and when the long-expected gush of stuffing issued forth, one murmur of delight arose all around the board. And even Tiny Tim, excited by the two young Cratchits, beat on the table with the handle of his knife, and feebly cried,
Hurrah! Such a goose. Just smell the sage and onion. Mother outdid herself this year. We got it for a good price, Father. It wasn't expensive at all.
A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us.
God bless us.
God bless us, everyone.
I didn't know Cratchit had a crippled son.
I wonder why.
Kind spirit, say the boy will not die.
I see a vacant seat at this table, and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die.
No, spirit, say he will be spared.
If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, none other of my race will find him here. But what difference does it make? If he's likely to die, then let him die, and decrease the surplus population.
You use my own words against me.
Yes, so that in the future, perhaps you will hold your tongue until you have discovered what the surplus population is and where it is. Who are you to decide who shall live and who shall die? It may be that in the sight of heaven you are more worthless and less fit to live than millions like this poor man's child.
And now, my dear ones, a toast. I give you Mr. Scrooge, the founder of our feast.
The founder of our feast indeed. I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast upon.
My dear, the children, Christmas Day.
It would be Christmas Day when one would drink to the health of such an odious, stingy, hard, unfeeling man as Ebenezer Scrooge. No one knows it as well as you, Bob.
My dear, have a little charity.
All right, I'll drink to his health, for your sake and the day's sake, but not for his. Long life to him, and a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I've no doubt he'll be very merry indeed, and very happy.
To Mr. Scrooge.
To Mr. Scrooge.
But the whole scene passed off, and he and the spirit were again upon their travels. Much they saw, and far they went, and many homes they visited, but always with a happy end. Suddenly, as they stood together in an open place, the bell struck. 12. Scrooge looked about him for the ghost, and saw it no more. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him.
I take it I am in the presence of the spirit of Christmas yet to come. You are about to show me the shadows of things that have not yet come to pass, but will happen in the time that lies before us. Is that not so? Spirit, I fear you more than any specter I have yet seen. Will you not speak to me? Lead on, Spirit. The night is passing away quickly, and time is precious to me. Lead on. I know these people and this place. It's the stock exchange. It's a second home to me.
No, I haven't heard anything about it either. All I know is he's dead.
Oh, when did he die?
Well, last night, I believe.
Why? What was the matter with him? I thought he'd never die.
Oh, God knows.
What has he done with his money?
I haven't heard. Left with his company, perhaps. All I know is he hasn't left it to me.
Well, it's likely going to be a cheap funeral. I don't know anybody who'd go to it. Suppose we made up a party and volunteered.
I don't mind going if lunch is provided, but I must be fed for all the trouble it's worth.
Well, it matters little to me either way. I never eat lunch, and I never wear black. But I'll offer to go, as long as anyone else will. I'm off to business. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Have these men no sense of decency or decorum? Spirit, what is this? Why am I seeing this?
The scene had changed, and now he almost touched the bare, uncurtained bed. A pale light rising in the outer air fell straight upon this bed, and on it, unwatched, unwept, uncared for, was the body of an unknown man, dead and alone.
Spirit, let me see some tenderness connected with this death, or this dark chamber, Spirit, will be forever present to me.
The ghost conducted him to poor Bob Cratchit's house, the dwelling he had visited before, and found the mother and the children seated round the fire. Quiet, very quiet. The noisy Cratchits were as still as statues in one corner and sat looking up at Martha, who had a book before her. The mother and her daughters were engaged in needlework, but surely they were very quiet. The mother laid her work upon the table and put her hand up to her face.
The color hurts my eyes. They're better now again. It makes them weak by candlelight, and I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father for the world. It must be near his time.
Past it, rather. But I think he walked a little slower than he used to these last few evenings, Mother.
I have known him walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder, very fast indeed. But he was light to carry, and his father loved him so. It was no trouble. No trouble. And there's your father at the door.
She hurried out to meet him, and Bob came in. His tea was ready for him, and they all tried who should help him to it most. Then the two Cratchits got up upon his knees and laid, each child, a little cheek against his face, as if they said, "Don't mind it, Father, don't be grieved." Bob was very cheerful with them, and spoke pleasantly to all the family. He looked at the work upon the table and praised Mrs. Cratchit and the girls.
You went today then, Robert?
Yes, my dear, I wish you could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green a place it is, but you'll see it often. I promised her I would walk there on Sunday. My little child, my little child.
Spectre, something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. I know it, but I know not how. Tell me, what man was that, with the covered face, who we saw lying dead and alone in the bed?
The ghost of Christmas yet to come conveyed him to a dismal, wretched, ruinous churchyard. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and followed the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Am I that man that lay upon the bed? Oh, no, no, Spirit, say it is not so. Hear me, Spirit. I'm not the man I was. I will be the man I should have been. Oh, why show me this if I am past all hope Assure me that I may alter the future by living a changed life. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. Oh, say that I may sponge away the writing upon that stone.
Holding up his hands in one last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own, to make amends in. He was checked in his transports by the churches, ringing out the lustiest peals he had ever heard. Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, no mist, no night. Clear, bright, stirring, golden day. Scrooge called out the window to a boy on the street.
What's today?
Eh?
Hey, my fine fellow, what day is today?
Today? Why, Christmas Day.
It's Christmas Day. I haven't missed it. Hello, my fine fellow.
Hello.
Now, do you know the poulterers? Not the one on the corner of the street, but the one down the street.
I should hope I did.
Oh, a delightful young lad, an intelligent boy. Now, do you know whether they've sold the turkey in the window? Not the little prize turkey, but the big one.
What? The one as big as me?
A delightful boy, a remarkable boy. It's a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my buck.
It's hanging there now.
Is it? Go and buy it.
The lease.
No, I am in earnest. I want you to go and bring them back. I may tell them where to send it. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's. He shan't know who sent it, and it's twice the size of Tiny Tim.
Scrooge dressed himself all in his best, and at last got out into the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth as he had seen them, with the ghost of Christmas present, and walking with his hands behind him, Scrooge regarded everyone with a delightful smile. Would you believe if I told you that Scrooge went to church that day? He did, and walked about the streets, and watched the people hurrying to and fro, and patted children on the head as they passed, and questioned beggars, and looked down into the kitchens of houses, and up to the windows, and found that everything could yield him pleasure. He had never dreamed that any walk, that anything at all, could give him so much happiness. In the afternoon, he turned his steps toward his nephew's house.
Oh, Fred, it's wonderful, and it's too much. You shouldn't have spent so much.
Oh, but I love you, my dear, and my wife shall have the best on Christmas Day.
Oh, Fred, I love you so, but not just for this.
I know, my dear. I know.
Now, who can that be?
I don't know. No one is expected at this hour.
Hello, Fred.
Uncle Scrooge!
Yes, it is I, your Uncle Scrooge. I recall an invitation that you made to me yesterday to come and dine with you. If that invitation is still in force, I should like to accept it.
Why, I don't know what to say.
Well, you could say, bah humbug, a retort of which I heartily repent, and shall never use again. Or you could say, come in.
Come in. Why, of course you shall come in. Hurrah, Uncle Scrooge. You have made us both very happy. Oh, may I introduce my wife, Janet? Janet, my Uncle Scrooge.
My dear, it is clear to me now why my nephew chose you among women. You are indeed very lovely.
Why, thank you, Uncle Scrooge. We're very happy you're here.
I'm sorry for the things I said about Christmas, and for the poor reception which I gave you yesterday, of which you were so undeserving. I see in your face the image of my sister. I loved her very much, you know, and she you.
I know it, Uncle Scrooge. She loved you very much, and wished until her dying day that we should always be close.
And so we are, Fred. So we shall be. So we shall be.
It is the day after Christmas. Scrooge is sitting at his desk, at his place of business, with a mischievous smile on his face, humming to himself as he works.
What's this?
Good morning, sir.
What do you mean by coming here at this hour of the day?
Very sorry, sir. I am behind on time.
Ah, Mr. Cratchit, you're late.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'll tell you what. I will not stand for this any longer. And therefore, I am about to double your salary. Yes, Bob, I'm going to double your salary. A Merry Christmas to you. I dare say a merrier Christmas than I've given you in many a year. And from now on, I will endeavor to assist you with your struggling family. And as for Tiny Tim, he will walk again. Oh. Now you needn't say a thing. Come with me and we shall discuss the particulars over a bowl of smoking bishop before you can so much as dot another I, Bob Cratchit.
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all, and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, as good a man, as the good old city knew. And ever afterward it was always said of Ebenezer Scrooge that he knew how to keep Christmas and to keep it well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of us, and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed,